One. Welcome everyone again to our third installment of It's a Progression with our awesome our awesome guest Ralph. He has been a stroke survivor for several years, and he has been encouraging us to always look positively when recovering. I'm going to hand off to you now, Ralph. Thank you so much for joining us again. I think everybody's been very excited about this.
Well, thank you, Samantha. So this is number 3. The first 2 are what happened, what to do about it, and then get moving and stay moving. This is walking and walking better. That's what everybody wants to get to. So go ahead to the next slide. Going to do a quick, can you click next slide? Yeah, there we go. Okay, a little quick disclaimer of sorts. I'm not a physical therapist. Like Samantha mentioned, I'm a stroke survivor. And these are the things I did in my own recovery. I think they're safe. They're mostly things that I stole or borrowed from physical therapists or worked out myself. They don't involve any kind of real danger or anything. If you have a physical therapist, you should always check with your physical therapist. It's like checking with your doctor before you start an exercise program. And once again, this is the third time. You know, the order is difficult because there's so many things you need to know at once, and walking is not a simple task. Okay, next. So I'm going to do a real quick review. Some people might not have seen the other ones or might need to go over it. So obviously, in order to walk, you're going to have to be able to stand up. You're going to also have to have some level of balance. And you're going to need to be able to weight bear somewhat on your affected foot. Even if you do that quick step shuffle because you can't weight bear, you have to be able to put some weight on the affected leg or you can't really move forward. Because balance and weight bearing could be an issue, you might very well need some type of walking aid at first. So next. You should just be able to hit the space bar or the forward arrow key. Okay, real quick, in order to walk, you got to be able to stand up. These are just a couple of ways of course, they require somebody else to help you. I've seen people who get up on all kinds of things if they don't have a person. On the left there, we're doing a variation of a leg press, which, I don't know, I guess I just threw that in. In the middle was early on, and I'm actually going to pull up on Kevin a good bit. There are some therapists that actually will lock knees to knees and rotate their weight back if somebody can't stand up at all. I've tried that. I'm okay at it. I don't like it. Typically, I've started working or standing people when they had a little more leg strength than that. And on the right, we've got like an elbow-to-elbow thing where the survivor can't really pull up on you very much, but they feel the stability. So those are some ways to get up. Next. We saw this one too before. This is me faking hemiplegia on the left with a grab bar in a wheelchair that is locked because if you have any problem, you need to sit back down in it. You don't want it wheeling away and leaving you on the ground or tipping over or anything like that. Next. And ultimately what you want to be able to do is to be able to do a sit to stand. And on your own, pretty much. That's when you get to do that, that's when you're going to really be making some progress. And there's some people and some therapists teach people to cross their arms on their chest. I actually, when I get up after dinner, I got a couple dinner plates. I'll stick them out. I don't throw myself, but I'll use my hands and whatever to counterbalance. I guess they feel if you cross your arms, you don't have your arms involved, and you're doing it 100% with your legs. That makes sense. Next. So, I mean, one of the best ways to get walking is to have somebody who's willing to walk you with a gait belt. Now, most people are pretty scared of this. I have actually trained a couple of people. I'm actually going to make a video about it eventually. I've got a big long list of videos that need to be done, and I've actually got a number of them that I've shot that haven't been edited yet. So what you're trying to do when you walk somebody with a gait belt is be completely neutral. You want to take steps when they take steps. You don't want to pull on the belt at all. Kevin on the left, it took me about 2 months for him to let me walk him with a gait belt because he had bad experiences with therapists pulling on it, and he thought I was going to pull on it, but he found out when we finally first did it, and those are his very first steps without his cane. Yep, he's got it in the air for security, but those are actually his first steps without a cane. So, next. And our old familiar best walker, the old shopping cart, mainly because if you don't want to stay home and you go out, why should you sit in the car? You may as well go in and walk around, grab your own shopping cart and walk around with your family caregiver or whoever you're at the store with. On the right's a walking frame, but I left it in because, you know, you can stand up on about anything. There's a deck fence and railing back there. I wheeled my wheelchair up to one and used it to stand up on. And then once I got stood up, I did weight bearing on my arms and all kinds of things. So you just have to be innovative. You know, when you're dealing with me, you're going to always get like, you know, the answer is always, well, find something to make it work. So next. And this is an example. I don't control these videos. He put things over the top. These are actually, if you look, they're yesterday and the day before. This is a stroke survivor in my group that is using a newel post to stand up with. He locks his chair and he can stand up. Then the next day he decided to go up the steps using the railing, and he backed down. The point of this is don't let things become an obstacle. You know, trying to remove, well, I can't do that. I don't have one of those. I can't do that. Obviously, you want to always remain safe, but you also don't want to run into a brick wall. So don't let yourself run into a brick wall. Next. And these are the different other types of, the various types of walking aids. Got your Hemi walker. You may as well go flip through these. Next. There's your basic Hemi walker. They're useful for people with hemiplegia with one, oh, not quite, with one side wiped out and very little or no use of their hand because they can go on, the walker goes on your strong side. I'm not a big fan of them. I know they're necessary. That's why you hear the hesitation in my voice. They tend to make you lean, and we're trying to get people to stand up straight. But they're necessary. They are necessary for some people to get them going. So that's why they exist, and that's why therapists recommend them a lot. So next. This is your basic standard walker, or in a lot of the rest of the world called a walking frame. That's why I put that in, because we never know who might be listening internationally. Yeah, this is your basic folding walker, cheap, convenient. A lot of people get them. Doesn't work so well with somebody with one hand. The other thing is you have to be really careful about this kind of walker not to lean. In this case, you lean forward. I had a stroke survivor who used one for about a year or so before he was ready to move to a quad cane, and it took us a year to get him. He leaned forward a lot with his walker. It took us a year to get him to stand up straight. I might have mentioned this before. If I haven't, you don't want to train your brain in bad habits because they're harder to get rid of. It's easier, to me, it seemed easier to get something going than it was to break a bad habit. Now, since you can't walk perfectly on day one, you have to accept things, and they are, in a sense, bad habits, ready to become habits if you stick with them too long. Of course, you can't get rid of something until you progress past it. So, you know, it's not like you can just say, well, tomorrow I'm not going to do that anymore, because if you could do that, then stroke recovery would be a piece of cake. You just say, I'm going to get 50% better tomorrow and the next day, and you'd be done. Anyway, next is the Rollator, or some people say Rollator, and it's really handy. It's got a place you can sit. It's got a place you can put stuff. Again, we're back to one-handed. It doesn't work very well for one-handed people. The other thing is, believe it or not, see the two brake levers? If you only have one hand, you can only operate one of them. And there is not a Rollator available in the United States that I've been able to find, and I've looked extensively, that has a single pull brake lever. Found one company in Portugal, but they don't bring them to the United States. So this is a problem for some people. Part of it's mindset, because I can tie my hand behind my back and limp, and I can operate one. You have to be careful using the brakes, because you only put on one side, and it could spin. Next. Okay, forgot to mention don't go back, but I forgot to mention the Rollator has small wheels, and so does the standing walker, and they're hard rubber. I can actually lock the brakes on either one and push the thing forward like the brakes aren't even on. I don't really like that, but I don't manufacture these things. Standing walker is great. I've worked with several people with them. The problem is typically people don't have them, and rehab facilities are just starting to get them in and make them part of their bag of tricks. But these are pretty good. I had one of the guys I worked with one was had very little use of his left hand, but we could lay it up there in that cup, and he didn't have to grab on particularly. And so that's a benefit, because a lot of the time with a hand or foot that won't cooperate, people sometimes strap them, tape them to whatever they want them to stay on. But so your arm can stay on this type of walker pretty well. Again, the brakes suck, but they're good, because look at how nice and upright she is. Of course, neither one of those people have anything wrong with them. That's some kind of advertising photograph. It's like, oh, isn't it great? Having a stroke. Anyway, next is the quad cane. Pay attention to where we are, because you'll need to remember that we're at a pier, a long dock. It's about a third of a mile. It's a couple thousand feet. It's a great place to walk. This is a guy, Chris, I work with, and he's got a quad cane there. And people get really attached to the quad canes. They're hard to get rid of too, because any kind of cane is hard to get rid of because of fear. But we could do an hour on fear. So sometimes people progress from a quad cane to a single point cane. Go ahead and flip it. This is yours truly with a single point cane. That's what they gave me right out of the rehab hospital. I didn't even know what a quad cane was for a number of months. Quad canes are handy because they stand up on their own. I didn't find much difference. I've tried a quad cane since, but then I've recovered. A lot of people like the old quad cane. Both canes are hard to get rid of, again, because of fear. So next. And of course, the goal is to be walking without anything. And that's Kevin again on the left. And the reason I mentioned a dock was that's a dock, a shared dock with 3 houses, one of which is his. It's about 250 feet. That's a good long distance to walk. You walk that thing out and back 2 full laps and you've done 1,000 feet. You know, that's pretty good when you're starting out. When you need to do more than that, you're probably not going to be holding on. But this is good because you can put it on your strong side. You have no device. You can gradually put a touch less and less. As Kevin touched less and less, I wanted to like get an oven mitt or something with roller bearings on it so he could just roll his hand down there. But then I wondered how he'd grab. Anyway, you can go from grabbing to light touching to hovering to not touching with a railing like that. Now, not everybody has a dock. It also works with fences. Where is a place you could find a big fence? Well, one place is in a park. For the home run fence at a baseball field. If they have a home run fence and you have a baseball field at your park, that's a good place to, again, look around. Don't take no for an answer. Find some kind of fence. And I never noticed it until this morning, but that gentleman in the swing set deal, he actually has a cane. But that's what, I mean, that would be ideal. Actually, I'm planning on building one of those next spring. They wanted $25,000 for that one. I think I can build one for about $1,000. What I'm going to do with it after that, remains to be seen. Anyway, next. So obviously what you want to do is be able to walk without anything. And once you get really good, you might even be able to carry something. So next. And you know, walking is a complex task. It involves a lot of parts and pieces. You got starting at the bottom, you got your feet and your ankles, your calves, your knees, your upper legs, your hip, your core. And let's not forget balance. I mean, balance isn't something you can touch, so I didn't put it in the list, but balance is important. And you used over 200 of your 600 muscles. Those are rounded for sake of convenience. I think you have 640 muscles and you use more than 200. When I was looking that up to double check the statistics, because I'd actually heard you use 2/3 of your muscles to walk, which would not be true. I noticed that it said you use more muscles to walk than you do to run, because in running there are a couple of muscle groups that propel you forward and you don't do the same kind of heel strike. So walking is a complex thing, because when you run, you're more running on your toes, and when you walk, you land on your heel, you roll through off of your foot, a lot more foot muscles, leg muscles, a lot more muscles involved. I better be careful here. I'm not trained in anatomy. Next. So, what did I do? I did a bunch of those exercises, but, well, we haven't seen the exercises yet. I did a bunch of exercises, but right away I started walking. And I did my best pattern walking. Of course, this is after I had to start over. I had a physical therapist who had me focusing on distance, and my form was terrible. One day, his physical therapy assistant chased me out in the parking lot and said he's wrong. So I called back to the rehab hospital. They told me to walk on my heels, walk on my toes, and walk my best pattern walk, the best pattern I could. So I called it pattern walking. And I learned at that point to concentrate on form over distance. And it didn't take me very long. Well, it took me 4 months to get where I was. It didn't take me even a month to get to where I could walk 3 miles again with proper form. I tell this to people who go on vacation and stuff and feel bad if they take a week off. Yeah, you go backwards, but it comes back so much faster than the first time. A lot of people want to train for speed, and I've done that, and what ends up happening is you end up feeling like you're running down the hill and about to outrun your feet. You fall forward, and I've actually dropped to my knees one time at the end of a walk when I realized how far forward I was walking. Anyway, speed I found comes with form and a more natural walk. What we're trying to do is to forget about all the thinking about walking and get back to the way we walked pre-stroke, because we didn't really think about walking. Once you have a stroke, your brain doesn't remember anything from before. There's no memory in your brain of how you walked. It did it all automatically at the moment you needed to walk. So, we sit in the wheelchair and go, how did I walk? Because you never had to think about it before. Anyway, I find that speed will naturally come with form, because you get back closer to a natural walk when you work on form. There's certain times where speed can be used, like with music therapy, or in controlled situations like a treadmill. You can up the speed and hold on, and you can actually, somebody in my group the other day bumped the treadmill up from 1.5 to 2. I thought maybe 1.75, but she went all the way to 2, and it actually made her foot behave itself better. She'd been thinking and thinking about bringing her foot in. Her unaffected foot had moved slightly out and was pointing out to give her a wider stance. When she bumped up the speed, but like magic, after a month of trying to control that and getting a little bit better, it suddenly went away, because she's having to use all of her brain to deal with that speed, and that part of that bad habit kind of got pushed to the side. That's my theory, anyway. Like I said, this is all opinion, but I did go through it. I do watch a lot of people walk. I watched this happen this week, so there you go. Next. And so I've got a YouTube channel, and one of the playlists is Walking Better. There are a whole lot of exercises you can do to walk better. I mean, I've got 20 something, and I've got a few more shot and not edited. I could easily make 20 more. That's 40. I bet you could come up with 100 exercises. At some point, some of them are duplicates. So anyway, I try to put these in the order that I think you should do them in, and I've got a big top four, because they're 22, and that's going to overwhelm people. So I tell them, just do these 4 to start if you don't know where to start. Of course, telling where to start is difficult, because unless you can see a video, you really don't know. On the other hand, every time I see a video, I come back, not every time, all but 1 or 2 times of the 100 or so videos that I've watched of people walking, my recommendation is the same thing. It's upper leg strength. Everybody will tell you, my knee doesn't bend. We'll get to that in a minute. It's not your knee. Next. So we've got, starting at the bottom, you got things that you can do to build up your ankles. These are all things that I did or early on in recovery, or discovered later and did. There's plenty of good things for ankles. You need good, strong ankles. You are not going to deal with AFOs and supination or ankle roll in this presentation, because you could spend an hour on that. So I'm assuming you don't have ankle roll, or that you're wearing an AFO, and that you may have to take it off to do a couple of these exercises, but they're not weight bearing and shouldn't really have any problem or cause any safety issues. I'm big on not getting hurt. I'm big on having something to hold on to. I'm big on safety. The biggest thing about taking a fall or whatever is not, well, you can break I have a friend who broke her affected hip in a fall. Of course, we always fall to the affected side. Not always, but seems like a rule. So some of these might have to take the AFO off in controlled situation. The thing about, I'm talking about AFOs now when I said I wouldn't, but the thing about an AFO is it keeps you from doing some of the exercises that are necessary to get rid of it. It's what Joseph Heller called catch-22. Anyway, so here are some basic exercises. I don't have one on the alphabet. I'm going to do that. Basically, you draw the alphabet with your big toe. Now, you can do this by crossing your affected leg over your unaffected leg. You can, and doing it in midair. You can lay it on a hassock or something in front of you and do it in midair. You can draw it on the ground in front of you, and somebody I know even did it on the wall. Now, you better have a wall that can stand to get dirty feet on it. Anyway, so let's go through these other in the alphabet real quick. And first is eversion. And eversion is basically taking your feet and moving them out. And so that's what we got here. I figured I would toss in that little slide on the right to show you that sometimes you've got to actually go to some extremes to be able to show something to somebody from the angle or point of view that you want. That's my cameraman Chuck sitting on top of a 6-foot ladder. He obviously hadn't had a stroke, because I wouldn't. I'm a cameraman with every bit as much experience with him, but I'm not sure I'd be real comfortable up there. Actually, if somebody plunked me down up there, it'd be okay. It'd be the getting from going up the ladder, I'd be okay. It'd be getting from, and he walked up the ladder with the camera, of course. If I could get up there and somebody hand me the camera, maybe. But anyway, next. And this is down and in, up and out. Sounds, I mean, that's just what I call it. There may be an official name for it. So what you're going to do there is you're going to point your toe in and down. My toe is not pointed down as far as I can point it, but I just grabbed still frames out of the video. Or maybe these were still shots. Anyway, and then you pull it up and to the outside. This is a real good one. One thing you have to be careful of is if you still have a lot of spasticity in your affected leg, and you start pointing that toe, and you start to feel like it's cramping or it's increasing your spasticity, in a sense, when you point your toe, you're playing into the stroke patterns. We have certain stroke patterns, like the arm coming up across the chest and the toe wanting to go down. A lot of people can't put their heel down when they try and weight bear. So if that happens to you, stop short of that. Don't point it. You don't ever want to play into any of the stroke patterns. You want to always fight them, work against them. If your arm's wanting to do this, you want to work it on extension. If your hand's in a ball, you want to work on opening it. Always fight the stroke pattern. Next. This is basically heel-toe pronation. Basically moving your toes up and down. Now you can do this in a wheelchair by raising your toes, but you can't point them down very well. One thing you can do is do heel raises and do them on the steps, and you can dip below. But that's, you have to be able to stand on your toes and have your heels hanging off. It's not that high level, but it's a little higher level. This is something that anybody can do. What I've done is I've just got my legs kind of stretched out in front of me on my heels. And on the left, I'm pulled back almost as far as I can. The thing about this versus having your foot flat is you can go down. You can point your toes all the way down and go, if you were sitting in the chair, you'd have to dig into the earth with your toes. On the right, we've got them down, but what I'm showing you there is I'm left affected, so I'm using my right there to assist my affected foot through the range of motion. This is something you can do a lot. Oftentimes you do it with your good hand. It's kind of hard to reach down that far, and so this is a way that you can get it going rather than say, I can't do that. Figure out a way like this. Nobody told me this. I just said, well, I can't do that. What can I do? And so I came up with this. I no longer do this, a lot of this, of course, but I remember it and I can stage it. Next. And these are like ankle rolls. Whoops. Go back to the ankle rolls for a sec. These are ankle rolls. Basically, well, we started doing them in yoga. I take adaptive yoga with my sister-in-law, and between breaks we either bounce out with our legs or point our toes up and down. I already knew that one, but she had us rotate our heels one way or the other, clockwise and counterclockwise. This is really interesting because if you try this with your affected leg, you won't do it very well. If you try it with both legs, the other side of your brain will click in and you'll be shocked at how much different your affected leg behaves when it's doing it in unison with your unaffected leg. It's called bilateral patterning. Anyway, on the left, I'm going clockwise and counterclockwise in big circles. Independently, and on the right I'm going clockwise and counterclockwise with both feet at the same time, not opposite. These are real handy. You can do them in a wheelchair. I mean, I'm doing some of this because I know that there are people that are going to watch this that might not be quite ready to jump up and walk. And even if you can, if you're still having some issues and you have weakness, these are things that you can do. And if you can do it when sitting around from a wheelchair or any other chair in the house, then you can put in therapy time without somebody else's help and without any devices, and that's always a good thing. So, next. Everybody says, my knee won't bend. Yeah, I've had some people insist that their knee wouldn't bend, so I told them to sit down in a chair. I said, where's your foot? Well, it's on the ground. I said, well, if it's not sticking straight out, then your knee bends. Well, it doesn't bend when I walk. Well, it's not your knee because you're sitting with your knee bent. It's your upper leg. This typically happens to everyone after a stroke. We end up with kind of a semi-useless peg leg. We lean away from it. We circumduct. That's where you swing your foot in a circle. Anything to keep to get the foot off the ground and keep that toe from dragging. Anybody who knows, anybody who's worked on drop foot and getting their knee to bend and upper leg strength knows that one of the last things that happens is you're just about there and that toe catches. Anyway, it's not your knee. So what do you need to do? You need to build up your upper leg, hip, and core, of course. One of the problems that is the knee is hyperextension. This comes from extreme weakness of all those muscles. It's where your knee actually goes backwards, goes behind you, goes too far behind you, and there are various variations on it because I didn't have that, but every time I got close to a normal position, your leg isn't straight. Your knee is bent at about a 1-degree angle, and the muscles keep it there. I didn't have hyperextension, but my knee would lock, kind of, not way back in, but it would kind of want to go to that locked position when I got too close to it. So what did I do? I trained my brain to stay away from it. And you'll see the result of that in a minute. Back to upper leg strength, because one of the things that will overcome hyperextension, in my opinion and experience, is to build up the upper leg muscles. Because again, it's their weakness that's allowing that knee to snap all the way back. One thing that is sometimes required is some type of knee brace, sometimes called a Swedish knee cage. I don't have any pictures. They're fairly common. Hopefully you won't need one. Next. One thing that I do know that you can do is, that I've done, is shallow knee bends. These are from videos, so they're really hard to show movement, knee bends. On the left, I'm doing it with both knees, both legs, and on the right, I'm doing shallow knee bends with affected leg only. Now these are great, and what I do is I just work like really close to that 1%. And but if your leg is weak, particularly if you do them on affected leg only, I'm 13 years out, I walk pretty good, but you know, I stand on one leg and try and do affected leg only shallow knee bends. Boy, that's a mouthful. And I have a problem with it. After 5 or 6, I'm not like moving through the range of motion smoothly. I'm a big believer that Strength comes from being able to move through the entire range of motion smoothly and with power. So one thing I did was when I was in pool therapy recently, I can only do about 5 or 6 affected leg only ones on land before I start to feel like my form is bad and I shouldn't be doing them because I could be reinforcing something that I shouldn't. And so I tried them in the pool, and I could easily do 50. And I can move shallower and make them harder, move deeper and make them easier. And I very much feel like I was moving through the entire range of motion with strength. And so next. And remember I said, so what did I do? Because I was scared of having that knee locked, I learned how to stay away from it. On the left is about 2 or 3 years after my stroke. On the right is about 10 years after my stroke. Look at my knees compared to my granddaughter's knees. I catch myself all the time, even now, even to this day, even knowing about it for all these years. So what I'm talking about bad habits. I'm sometimes in the kitchen cooking, and I notice my knees. I got both my knees bent, and I'm propping myself up against the cabinets. I don't need to do that. So I go, stop it, brain, and step back and stand up straight. Anyway, next. So, if it's all the upper leg's fault, what are we going to do about it? Well, we're going to build up the quads, the glutes, the hamstrings. Those are muscle groups, not individual muscles. People will refer to them like they are individual muscles. Also, the calves are another group. There are a number of things that are pretty simple to do. It's great if you got like some kind of robotic treadmill that'll keep you from falling and everything, but most people don't. And most people run out of insurance, even if they had access to one of those at some point. So everything that I do is kind of based on not requiring any equipment, able to do it at home. And you'll notice when we get to the end of here that I'm going to show you me walking, but I'm not showing you exactly how to put all this together, because that's something that is different for everybody, and you kind of have to be there. And I could coach somebody through that, but I might have to be with them 10 or 20 weeks, go in there once a week or whatever, and working on the next thing and the next thing. It's back to, like I said in week 1 and 2, you got to learn all you can about the brain and become your own physical therapist. I pick every therapist's brain all I can. I try not to be annoying, but and most of the ones that around here know what I'm doing, and they're more tolerant of me now that they know that. But I'm always asking questions. So if you're going to physical therapy and not asking questions, you're wasting some of your time. You're wasting not your time, you're wasting an additional opportunity. How about that? So, some of these things are just tried and true. High stepping. You want to move, you want to walk, so you're going to have to pick up your knees, and it's basically walking in place. Knee bends. I think they're maybe the single best thing you can do, other than perhaps stairs, and we'll get to stairs in a minute. Like I said, there's a million things to do at the same time. The order here is tough. Couple more. So those are the big 4 I always recommend: high stepping, knee bends, heel raises, and weight bearing. You got to get that heel down. You got to be able to put weight on that affected leg, or you're going to do the little stroke shuffle, where you go ba-doom, ba-doom. You're putting the weight on that affected leg for the shortest time you possibly can. There are a number of other things, probably 50 other things: butt kickers, vertical leg extension, lots of things. And you can do all these at the counter or wherever. I'm getting ready to show you a couple of wherevers here. So next. I use the fence in my backyard. Anything you can grab onto. On the left there, I'm doing high stepping. Chuck's got it easy. He just rolls the camera and doesn't have to balance on top of a ladder, except in the middle slide where I'm doing kicking. And what we're showing there, he did shoot that from the side, but what we're showing is I always have a visual. And when I kick with one leg, it goes up to, well, I'm using the top of my computer screen now. And I make sure when I kick with my affected leg that it also goes up that high. So I'm using a step, and I actually in this video put a line on the step and showed how I was trying to make it even. Of course, when you first start out, you have leg weakness, or you wouldn't be doing this, and your leg won't go as high, but that's your goal, to get them even. And then on the right, we're doing knee bends, and I love knee bends, or some people call them squats. Next. There are toe raises. I didn't have a still. I have a video on doing it on the steps. Like I mentioned before, you can put your toes on the steps and let about half of your foot up to the ball of your foot on the steps. It's not that difficult. I use steps with a railing on both sides. I show people how to move towards your strong side. Always have your strong side next to the railing so you can grab on if need be. And if you can stand on your toes, then you can dip below grade. And then what's happening is your heel raises become toe raises. Not only that, but your body weight can help force it down. So a lot of times, we move things. In my toe lifts video, I show people who can't get it going how to pull with a rope or a TheraBand. So using your weight is another trick to get that range of motion where you don't have it yet by controlling it with your brain. If you move through that range of motion and you think about it while you do that, then ultimately I have found I made connections, and I've seen other people make connections. Like I mentioned, there are a zillion others. On the middle, I'm showing it's a 4x4 instead of a $100 maple therapy block, and I'm using a walker instead of parallel bars because I don't have a $2,000 set of parallel bars, and neither do you at home. And so that's a step over. Also, there's another one where these are both on foot placement, where you put your toe up on the block repeatedly, and you learn to do that without looking. That's called proprioception. On the right, something called foursquare. You just put a tape on the bottom and you move your affected foot around. When you get really good, you can try it with your unaffected foot because that means you're balancing on your affected leg. Good luck with that. You can do it, but it takes a while. It took me a long time, and I'm still not very good at balancing on my affected leg only. Next. These are pretty high level. This is what the rehab hospital told me to do to start over. And I'll tell you what, walking on my heels was a game changer for heel-toe pronation, landing on my heel, rolling off my toe. It just completely changed that dorsiflexion or heel-toe pronation equation. You have to have pretty good balance to do this because if you lean back on your heels, you don't want to go over backwards. Toes is easier, and more people are used to walking on tippy toes. We all did that when we were kids, and very few of us walked on our heels. And then walking backwards is good because it uses a completely different set of muscles. Don't try this at home unless you've got pretty good balance, but these are some things that you can move on to. Now, all this is given to you in terms of designing a home program that works for yourself. Again, like I said, you kind of got to be your own physical therapist unless you have one. If you have one, you should be getting homework from them and doing the homework that they say. You should be telling them that you want to prepare for when you no longer have insurance and can't see them. And so you should be talking to them about your home program, I say, from day one by getting homework. You certainly shouldn't bring it up on your last visit. And you should also have a strategy to change it up as time goes on. Some people take the sheets from their last visit and do that for a year. Well, neuroplasticity doesn't work that way. So after about a month or two, they're not challenging their brain anymore, and they're really not doing themselves a whole lot of good. But that's very hard to tell them, and that's another story. So next. On the hip, ones I know, there may be more, but again, I'm not a physical therapist, so I didn't get to go to school. I went to the school of hard knocks by having one and a stroke, and I also have worked with 13 local stroke survivors under a physical therapist, one of them for 5 years. So Here we'll show you clamshells real quick. I've got a couple of variations on them that people don't know about. I didn't until this year, in fact. Next. So this is your basic clamshell, and that's my left affected leg. Of course, you don't want to do them. I mean, I do them on both sides because I believe in symmetry. But if you're only going to do one side, of course you want to do your affected side. It won't do you much good to lay on your affected leg and raise your other leg. So you basically start with your knees together and go up to this position. I got pretty good foot position there. You basically put your heel and your ball of your foot together and rotate them like a hinge. So that's your basic clamshell. Next. There's some insidious types of clamshells. Now I'm facing the other way, and I'm ignoring my own advice in a sense because my affected leg's down, except I'm moving both of them at once. And I want my affected leg down because my brain would, if I did them on the other way with my affected leg on top, my brain would tell my unaffected leg to do all the work, and I'm trying to work it out. So in this case, you put the affected leg down. And you move them both up, and you can't cheat because the strong leg's on top. Okay, now here are the two I didn't, this is one of the two that I didn't know, and here's the other one. My physical therapist had a name for this. It was something like, I don't remember, clamshells from hell or terrorist. No, they call it physical terrorists. Anyway, she had a crazy name for them. This is one where you go up with your strong leg, then you come up with your affected leg. Then you go down with your affected leg, you go down with your strong leg. So it's a 4 count. Right, left, left, right. And repeat endlessly, of course, because you repeat everything endlessly. If you think these are easy, you need to take a look at my face. I couldn't find a frame where I wasn't straining. Not straining, but these are tough. Anyway, they build up your hips pretty good, though. Next. Then there's your basic abduction. Abduction is when you move something away from your body. So I'm abducting my arm. And so you stand there and you move your affected leg out. Now, one thing that you are going to want to do in the beginning is lean to the, in my case, to the right to get that affected leg up. No, notice how I'm standing up nice and straight. I stand up like more than straight and I stare at something in the distance, and because you want to do all the work with your hip, you don't want to compensate. The brain is an insidious thing and it's lazy, and after a stroke it'll get you to do all kinds of shortcuts and things, and you have to be careful of it. And this is a hip abduction exercise. Basically you start with your feet together and you throw them out in unison as far as you can. I discovered something interesting, and that was that my left affected leg wasn't going as far out. No surprise there. But I started thinking, not thinking about my right and thinking, throw the left, throw the left. And I say it out loud sometimes. Sometimes I talk to myself. I'm talking to my brain. Somehow or another, if you say throw to the left, it builds in a positive habit. Well, I noticed when I thought about the left one, it went farther out. In fact, in the video, I put digital marks on the counter, and I do it both ways, and I show you how it'll go out farther. So that's an interesting technique. Next. Got to get rocking and rolling here. Core. Okay, we'll go through these pretty quick. So the 3 basic things of core, these are real elemental. Most people are beyond, who are going to be talking about walking, are beyond rolling, but rolling, crawling, and bird dogs on the ground will get you to standing up and then eventually walking. So everybody's going, what's Superman banana? Well, when you roll and you're on your stomach, you go up like Superman flying on the clear sheet that George Reeves flew on in the original Superman. And banana is when you're on your back, you try and touch your hands to your toes, so you're curling up each way. Crawling is really good. That's how babies learn to walk. So if you can't do a 2-point crawl, you're not going to do very well walking. I've worked with somebody who took her over a year to get from a 4-point crawl. That's where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, to like the way babies do it, where you do opposite right leg, right arm, left leg, left arm, right leg. Bird dogs are where you lift up the opposite arm and leg and you balance. We're going to see all these, so go ahead and flip. There's crawling. There's a bird dog in the middle. They're very good for balance, and they work your core because of that balance. So your core muscles are the ones that do the balance when you're only on one arm and one leg. And there's rolling. So next. Okay, left is bridges, right is planks. I don't show the one-legged bridge. I do them too. That's where I take my right leg and I stick it straight out. In parallel, I just take the heel off the ground and do them with my affected leg only. Well, I'm yoga breathing there. You can see I'm diaphragm breathing. You can see the big hole below my rib cage there. You want to make sure that you breathe in on the down, not the up. It seems backwards, but that's the way it is. Those are planks. That's a standard plank. Some people do them like a push-up. Supposedly they're harder. I don't find it harder or easier one way or another. Supposedly they're harder when you do them on your elbows like this. So I do 2 variations on them that were taught to me by a physical therapist. You can't do them very well on your elbows, so they're more the push-up position, and that is you rock forward and backwards, and now you're rocking on your toes and you're bending your heels too. I mean, your ankles are bending. You're going through that dorsiflexion movement. Also, you're going in and out of balance, and you're doing a lot of core work. So it's forward, backward, and then left, right. So next. God. Once you get good at a lot of this stuff, it's time to challenge yourself. Like I said, the brain learns by being challenged. So, you can find a safe set of stairs. See how that set of stairs got railings on both sides? Unfortunately, most of the safe sets of stairs with railings on both sides are steel like these or concrete. They're real hard. Of course, I don't suppose there's any soft steps to take a fall on. You don't want to fall. That's why you're using the railings. Like knee bends, I got to think that steps are maybe the single best thing that you can do for your walking and for your leg strength and your hip strength, because you go through the whole range of motion every time with each leg each time you go up, assuming you're putting one foot up on each step as you go and not doing the one step catch up, one step catch up. You got to be you got to be able to put your affected leg up a step and go up for steps to be able to do you a lot of good. And on the right, there's a challenge for you, a real life challenge. They're everywhere. Next. Here's some more challenges. About 3 months in, I walked up 1,700 vertical feet and about 2 miles to the top of Siler Bald and went butterflying, and I wasn't worried about falling down at that point. And challenging terrain like that's very interesting. You should, of course, start out on grass and gravel and flagstone walkways and things that require you to worry about your proper foot placement and everything. But ultimately, there's no better therapy to prepare you for life than life itself. So this is a little life itself, and there's the feather bells in the foreground that we went up to. We knew they'd be blooming because I'd photographed them a number of other years. Next. And here's another challenging thing. On the left, I'm actually standing on a 2x4 with muddy feet. I am holding on with my affected arm there on the left, and boy, that was a challenge. Walking around, it rained 2 inches the night before. I don't know if you have any idea how muddy and sloppy that was. Walking around with a video camera, you don't want to drop in the mud. Real brain challenge. You got to get through it. I can't tell you how good that day was for me. It was incredibly hard, but I didn't drop the camera, and I was forced into a level that I would not have put myself through standing at a fence doing high stepping. So that's the point of these last couple of slides. When you get good, you need to challenge yourself. Next. And these are more modern. That's the top of a lighthouse. Boy, you want to challenge. Try walking up a lighthouse, especially one that doesn't have risers. It just has treads, because I don't know about everybody, but it whacks my brain out when I can look through the steps. I just have real problem. And they only have a railing on the outside. And the closer you go to the inside, you can't hardly walk on them to the inside. You have, because they go straight up and they have no width to the treads. So it's kind of interesting, either depending on which side you are and which way they wind, because I've seen stairways wind counterclockwise and clockwise. You'll only have a railing either on the way up or the way down, not both. Ooh, good luck with that. And then this is much more recent near my house. This is a favorite. Yeah, right, a favorite. I really don't like walking on floating dock. It kind of messes with you. It's like walking on a train with the train moving. You know, the ground under you is moving, but it's a real good technique for challenging. And when I walk down to the Intercoastal Waterway, which is a half mile from my house, perfect if you want to take a 1 mile walk, I always walk out to the end of that thing, unless the wind's blowing 30 or 40 miles an hour. All right, next. We're getting to the end here. So if you click that, it'll play a video. This is hopefully the result. I hope it'll play a video. We'll see. Should just be able to click it anywhere, I think. Maybe not.
Well, for us, Ralph.
That's okay. It was just a video of me walking. I'm walking pretty good. I was going to see if people could see any clunk. I can still see it. Anyway, go ahead and flip to the next because I'm pretty much over. And, you know, one of my theme songs is Therapy's All Around You. You know, you don't have to go to the therapist. You can come up with your own exercises and challenges. So do that. And next would be any questions anybody has. I don't even know if anybody's here. I'm only seeing you, Ashley.
Well, I'm still here, and thank you so much for your presentation today.
No problem.
This was wonderful. We're going to get this up on our YouTube page, and we're going to get it up on our website, Support After Stroke, as well.
Right, yeah, do the same thing and send it to me through the secure site, and I will put the graphic heads and tails on it and send it and upload it back for your channel. I posted on mine as well. Same thing with the Halifax logos and such. I got no problem with branding and sharing and all that. We're all supposed to be on the same team.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much, Ralph. We appreciate it, and we look forward to the next.
Okay, and I'll try and get my PowerPoint solved before the next one. I've just been, you know, it's crazy when you're so busy you can't solve the problems that are making you busy.
No worries at all. We know how that goes.
We all know how that goes, yeah. Well, I've been in one of those situations because we're expanding and forming a nonprofit and starting a website and trying to train people to help with recruiting and other things, so I don't have to do everything. And it's just like software. You know, you order software and you think it's going to solve all your problems, and it makes life worse temporarily while you're because you have to do everything that you're doing before and now make the software work. But once you get it, it's a good thing. So we're going through one of those stages right now. And
growing pains, that's what we call that.
Yeah, it's growing pains. So
well, you have a good one. Have a good rest of your evening, and thanks again, and I'll see you on the next call.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I'll have to tell you sometime about the crazy dream I had.
Oh.
Oh, it involves you in Halifax and everything.
Oh gosh.
Bad idea. Let me write it up and I'll email it to you.
Sounds good.
I have these nutty dreams. They're kind of like a half dream and they're like half reality. And a lot of times they're actually ideas that would work. And yeah, we'll see what you think of this one.
Yeah, send it on over, Ralph.
Okay.
You have a good one.
All right. Bye. Don't forget to save the recording.